I never imagined that a few lines of code, something I wrote in my tiny home office at 3 a.m., would be the foundation of a $400 million empire, an empire I had no claim to. I wasn't born into wealth. I didn't grow up with family connections or an easy path. Everything I had, I built myself. I was the guy who stayed up all night learning programming while my friends were out drinking. The guy who took freelance coding gigs just to make ends meet. And when I met her, I thought I had finally found something real. Samantha. She wasn't just beautiful. She was sharp, ambitious, and fiercely loyal. Or at least that's what I believed. I still remember the night she told me about her father's failing travel agency, Whitmore Travel. Gregory Whitmore was on the verge of bankruptcy. Their family name was respected in the industry, but respect didn't pay the bills. They needed a miracle. And I was foolish enough to provide it. I designed an intelligent AI-driven booking and logistics software that didn't just fix their company's issues. It revolutionized how travel businesses operated. My software streamlined everything: customer bookings, predictive pricing, real-time flight adjustments, exclusive corporate partnerships. In a single year, Whitmore Travel went from near bankruptcy to a multi-million-dollar empire. I should have been celebrated. I should have been part of it. But success doesn't just bring fortune, it brings power shifts, and power shifts expose true intentions. Gregory always made it clear I wasn't one of them. "You're just a tech guy," he would say, waving off my contributions as if I hadn't just saved his family's legacy. But Samantha, she was different. She stood by me at first. When the business was taking off, when the money started pouring in, she looked at me like I was the most brilliant man in the world. We were a team. Then came the first change. At industry events, she started introducing me differently. "This is Noah, my husband," instead of, "This is Noah, the mind behind Whitmore Travel's success." It was subtle, but I felt it. Then came the second change. Gregory started hiring more executives, businessmen with long resumes and perfect smiles. The meetings I used to lead, they started happening without me. Decisions were made without my input. Samantha assured me it was just business strategy, that they were expanding in ways that didn't concern me. I believed her. Then came the final change. His name was Daniel King. The first time I met him was at a Whitmore Travel gala. I shook his hand, thinking he was just another corporate hire. He smiled at me like I was nothing. That should have been my first warning. But the real betrayal? 1 year after I built their empire, I found out Samantha was engaged to him. Not dating, not thinking about leaving me, engaged. We were still married. I had built her family's fortune only to be pushed out like I was irrelevant. And the worst part? I never saw it coming. I had spent so much time working, building, ensuring they succeeded, that I didn't notice I was being replaced. The final blow came at a family dinner. I didn't even want to go, but Samantha insisted. "It'll be good for us," she had said. "You should hear the big plans we have." I thought maybe this was it. Maybe I was finally getting the respect I deserved. I was so wrong. Gregory stood up, glass raised, smiling like a proud king. "As we take Whitmore Travel into its next era, I'm proud to introduce our new CEO, Daniel King." I froze. My mind couldn't process it fast enough. I turned to Samantha. She didn't even look at me. The company I built, the empire I created, it was handed to another man, a man who had done nothing. The table erupted in applause, smiles, cheers, handshakes, as if I had never existed. I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to stand. "What?" My voice cracked, but I pushed forward. "What the hell is this?" Gregory didn't even have the decency to act surprised. He chuckled, reaching into his wallet and pulling out a crisp $100 bill. He held it up between his fingers and tossed it at me like I was a beggar. "This is your actual value, Noah," he said. "Take it and move on." The world blurred. The humiliation was like a dagger in my chest. I looked at Samantha one last time. You knew. Still, she wouldn't meet my eyes. That silence was my answer. I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I just left. But as I walked out that door, one thought burned in my mind. They had no idea what was coming. The night. Everything changed. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The sounds of laughter and clinking glasses from inside the Whitmore mansion still rang in my ears. They were celebrating. My humiliation. I had built that empire, given them everything, and they had tossed me aside like scrap metal. And the worst part? Samantha never even looked at me. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to think rationally. If I reacted out of anger, the booking system, the client management software, the predictive AI, the partnership algorithm, all of it was built on my software. The licensing agreement expired at midnight. There would be no renewal. As of 9:00 a.m. tomorrow, Whitmore, Travel would have no access to its digital operations, no extensions, no second chances. I hovered over the send button, took one last deep breath, and clicked. Send. It was done. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because when they woke up tomorrow, they wouldn't just lose a company. They'd lose an empire. Noah stood in the boardroom, watching the chaos unfold around him. Samantha gripped the armrests of her chair as if she might collapse, and Gregory, still too proud to admit the truth, sneered. "Do you think this little stunt will ruin us? We'll rebuild." I laughed, actually laughed. Rebuild? Without a functional system? Without your partners? Do you even know what's happening outside this boardroom? I gestured toward the windows. Whitmore Travel's entire client database is inaccessible. Every partner contract is frozen. All bookings, cancellations, and travel plans are in limbo. No one trusts a company with no infrastructure. This isn't just a hiccup, Greg. It's an extinction-level event. Gregory opened his mouth to argue, but his phone rang. I watched as he answered, listened, and then slumped into his chair. Another client gone, another deal lost. Whitmore Travel was dead. Samantha's plea. Samantha finally spoke, her voice soft, almost fragile. "Noah, please, you don't have to do this." I turned to her, surprised. "Do what? Destroy you?" Her voice cracked. "You made your point." "Destroy you?" I repeated. I leaned in closer. "Samantha, I didn't destroy anything. I just let go." Her eyes shone with something I couldn't quite place. Regret, maybe? Fear? It didn't matter anymore. I had spent years thinking I needed her family's approval. Now I realized they needed me, and I didn't need them at all. The final blow. Gregory finally looked at me. "What do you want?" The desperation in his voice was delicious. I smiled. "I already have it." He frowned. "What?" I gestured to the room. "This. Watching you realize that you made the biggest mistake of your life. That's all I needed." Then I turned to leave. As I reached the door, I paused, glancing over my shoulder. "Oh, and Greg." I pulled something from my pocket, the $100 bill he threw at me during that dinner. I walked back to the table, placed it in front of him, and smirked. "This is your actual value." Then I walked out, leaving them to drown in the ruins of their greed. Reflection. I didn't drive straight home. I needed time to process what had just happened, to let it all sink in. I had done it. Gregory, Samantha, Daniel, the entire Whitmore empire. They were finished. And the best part? I hadn't lifted a finger in rage. I didn't need to. They destroyed themselves the moment they underestimated me. I pulled into a quiet parking lot by the waterfront. The city skyline glowed across the river, its lights flickering over the water. The wind had a bite to it, cutting through my jacket, but I barely felt it. My mind was too alive, still buzzing from everything that had unfolded. For the first time in months, I wasn't the man standing in the shadows waiting to be acknowledged. I was the man who had just burned down an empire and walked away smiling. And yet, there was no overwhelming joy, no euphoria, just silence. The cost of betrayal. For years, I had poured everything into that company, my time, my ideas, my expertise. Not for money, though the money was great. Not for status, though I had earned it. I did it because I believed in them. I believed in Samantha. I believed I was building a future for us. I wasn't some naive kid who thought love alone could sustain a marriage. But I thought respect could. Loyalty. Trust. And yet, Samantha had thrown it all away for a man with a better suit and a last name her father approved of. Daniel King. He was the polished version of me, the guy Gregory could parade around as his ideal son-in-law. And Samantha, she had gone along with it. When had it started? How long had she been planning this? Had she ever felt even a moment of guilt? I closed my eyes, letting the cold night air sting my skin, trying to push those thoughts away. I couldn't afford to dwell on her anymore. She had made her choice, and now she had lost. The reality of power. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I already knew who it was before I even answered. Hello? A long silence, then a sigh. You win. Gregory's voice was hoarse, stripped of its usual arrogance. I smirked. I know. More silence. Then, let's meet. I chuckled. Why? You know why. Gregory Whitmore had spent his life controlling people. He had built an empire on making sure no one was more powerful than him. And now, he had to swallow his pride and come to me for help. I glanced at my watch. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., my off.